The fifth summit of the five most prominent emerging economies of the world was held between the 25th of March and the 27th of March in South African port city, Durban.
Because the contradictions were so extreme, even at that stage, in relation to the local way in which activists were repressed in the host city of Durban, in the ways in which the economic arrangements and policies contributed to ongoing super exploitation, including gender repression, and the environment was being devastated. Groups from across the BRICS came to Durban to discuss, to prepare a joint critique. And a BRICS from below movement emerged.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, Africa's open like bullet holes in my cap. Holding us, something you should know. You're dropping bricks from above, we're bringing bricks from below.
And then we met in Diakonia, the major progressive church center in the center of town, just as the BRICS leaders were arriving. We had indeed one of the key experts in the world on finance, Pedro Paez. There was panels on land grabs, on agriculture and water. And on the day that the BRICS really met for their substantive discussion in Durban at the Albert Lutuli International Convention Center, a march to that same site. This march started with an anti-imperialist statement at the US consulate in central Durban before going to the sub-imperialist bloc of the BRICS. That march had a very clear message to the BRICS: don't carve up Africa. And that's where BRICS from below gathered and demanded that a representative of the South African government take a memorandum. Someone from the foreign ministry did come out.
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय वित्त व्यवस्था में पश्चिमी देशों के एकाधिकार को तोड़ने के लिए अब अगले 2 साल में ब्रिक्स देशों का नया विकास बैंक बनने जा रहा है।
न्यू डेवलपमेंट बैंक का पहला क्षेत्रीय कार्यालय दक्षिण अफ्रीका में खोला जाएगा। ये बैंक विश्व बैंक और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मुद्रा कोष से अलग होगा।
The real event was a counter summit where a people's BRICS emerged to contest the contingent reserve arrangement alternative to the International Monetary Fund, for the reason that the BRICS elites had said, if you want to get a loan from this contingent reserve arrangement, the CRA, then you first get a little bit, but you first have to get an International Monetary Fund structural adjustment policy so we know you're serious.
Chinese President Xi is in the Russian city of Ufa. That is where the BRICS countries and its members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization are holding meetings.
2015, without any hosting possibility given the repression in Vladimir Putin's Russia, that a civil BRICS was invited by Putin, his own hand-picked NGOs and very moderate NGOs.
In terms of state repression, in terms of the trajectory that our governments are taking, the totalitarian approaches and authoritarian ways in which governments are functioning, and also their drift towards neoliberal agendas despite all their promises when they initially formed BRIC, which later became BRICS. So it is again up to the people's movements of all these countries to build solidarities within our countries, but also to build solidarities across nations and across continents and think together.
It was hosted by the National Alliance of People's Movements and allied social movements, NGOs, and many trade unions, youth groups, environmentalists. There were more than 700 at the plenary. And it was impossible to get across to the mainland. So in Hong Kong, we had a People's Forum that also discussed the Belt and Road Initiative. Here was the plenary. It was a low-key event, a couple of hundred people in and out, in a school in Hong Kong, but there were mainland Chinese workers, but they had to be disguised during the photography because of the repression from, ironically, the Chinese Communist Party. These were some of the organizing groups: Globalization Monitor, Asia Labor Monitor, Borderless Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Federation of Trade Unions was there. And since then, many of these groups have actually had to go into exile or actually dissolved because of Xi Jinping's repression against the democratic movement and the progressive socio-economic justice movements of Hong Kong.
We are here to fight our rights. So mawukhuluma isipechi sakho sicela nje sibhekise lento esizele.
The oppressors, they are together. They have the say. They are very, very, very clear in what they want to do. And I think that is why we also need to come together, form this transnational alliance and fight against them.
They call it New Destructive Bank in their New Africa Regional Center in Santon, because it was a non-transparent institution, unwilling to consult affected communities, finding only corruption-riddled South African borrowers. The new Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, much more tightly aligned to Donald Trump's regime than to the other Russia, India, China, South Africa allies. It was time in Brasilia in November for the Internationalize the Struggle, Internationalize Hope counter summit of the International People's Assembly, the ALBA movement, Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, Brazil Popular Front, the Fearless People Front, including South Africans from Abashali Basinjandola, the National Union of Metal Workers, and others.
मुझे विश्वास है कि आज की बैठक
governmental BRICS have failed miserably. In fact, there is infighting between the members. There is no coordination. The BRICS is now, the official BRICS is now just a structure where there is no interconnection, no life left in it. It's a ritualistic meetings that has recently taken place with India's presidency. The COVID catastrophe. We have seen that instead of coming together, instead of working in solidarity, nations have worked together for their own goods, not even for their own people, for their own industries and their own businesses. People, millions and millions, maybe more than 1 billion people worldwide has become poorer. In India, something like 400 million people have suffered terribly. The People's BRIC that we are collectively organizing, we means that civil society and movement groups from all BRICS countries, is extremely important.
It's a space of debate and reflection from people's perspectives, a space for the people's movements from the BRICS countries to build unity and alliance. It's a space to build solutions and concrete joint actions to oppose the anti-people's policies of the BRICS countries. In short, the People's BRICS Forum is a space for the people.
Salutes and Zindabad. Looking forward to seeing all of you.